may contain details of graphic content. This channel is for mature audiences only. Some viewers might find this disturbing. Kalief Browder was born on May 25th, 1983 in the Bronx, New York. At birth, he was arranged into the care of Child Protective Services due to his mother being addicted to narcotics. Kalief was the youngest of 7 siblings. His adoptive mother, Vanetta Browder, raised 34 children by 2015. The children included were biological children, fostered, and adopted children. Him and his family lived in a 2-story house near the Bronx Zoo. Kalief attended New Day Academy. He was described as a very smart and fun kid. In 2009, Kalief was charged with 3rd-degree larceny. In the state of New York, grand larceny refers to the amount of at least $1,000. Grand larceny is often classified as a felony with the accessory of a harsher sentence. On May 15th, 2010, as Kalief was coming home from a party, him and his friend were stopped on Arthur Avenue near the East 186th Street in the Belmont section of the Bronx. He just assumed that the police were doing a routine stop and frisk, a routine he went through several times before. Police were responding to a 911 call that was placed by Roberto Batista. Roberto called 911 stating that his brother's backpack was stolen. The backpack contained a camera, $700, a credit card, and an iPod Touch. Roberto specified that 2 male black guys stole his brother's backpack, and this is why Kalief and his friend were stopped. During the stop, Kalief told police, quote, "I didn't rob anyone. You can check my pockets," end quote. Roberto was sitting in the back of the police car and insisted that Kalief and his friend were the thieves. Despite police checking Kalief and not finding the missing backpack, he was still taken into custody. Police questioned Roberto, the guy who placed a 911 call regarding the missing book bag. It was determined that the robbery had occurred 2 weeks prior to the 911 call. When the initial police report was filed, it was determined that the robbery was reported on May 2nd, but Roberto told police it happened on May 8th. During the arrest of Kalief Browder, Kalief asked the officers why he was being arrested when he didn't do anything, and the officer stated him and his friend would be taken to the 48th Senate Police Station, and he would likely be able to go home. When Kalief and his friend arrived at the station, they were both fingerprinted and placed in a holding cell for a few hours. They were then transported to the Bronx County Criminal Court, where they were processed at the court's central booking. 17 hours after their arrest, Kalief was interrogated by an officer and a prosecutor. Now, let me remind you guys, this is over an alleged stolen book bag. 17 hours they've been in jail because of a stolen book bag. The next day, he was charged with robbery, grand larceny, and assault. His bail was set for $3,000. His family worked with the bail's bondman, so the amount that was needed to bail him out was $900. His family borrowed this amount from a neighbor. When Kalief's family went to bail him out, they were told that he was not eligible for release due to him already being on probation, so posting bail would not get him released. He was transported to Rikers Island to await his trial. Some of you may have heard of Rikers Island. If you haven't, it is one of the most, if not the most treacherous prisons to ever be sent to. Kalief explained that he witnessed inmates washing their clothes with soap in a metal bucket, causing rust stains on their clothes. His mother would visit him weekly, bringing him clean clothes and money for snacks. to avoid being the target, Kalief would sleep on top of his belongings. He felt as though he needed to gain some muscle in case he needed to defend himself. Kalief was tortured during this time at Rikers Island. On one occasion, he and some other inmates were lined up against a wall. The correctional officers wanted to find the instigator of a fight that had taken place. One by one, Kalief and the rest of the inmates were punched by the COs. Their noses were leaking, eyes bloody and swollen. If their injuries were reported, they were threatened with being placed in solitary confinement. On October 20th, 2010, a gang member spat in Kalief's face. Kalief retaliated by punching the gang member. 15 gang members attacked Kalief in response of him punching their member. On September 23, 2010, a video recording showed Kalief getting assaulted by the COs. Another occasion, Kalief got into an altercation with an inmate, which led to him being put in solitary confinement for 2 weeks. According to Kalief, this is what happened. He stated, quote, "He was throwing shoes at people. I told him to stop. I actually took his sneaker and I threw it, and he got mad. He swung on me and we started fighting," end quote. While in solitary confinement, the COs would beat him while he was showering. He had a verbal altercation with a guard that led to it becoming physical. Kalief Browder was eventually given a public defender named Brendan O'Meara. His trial was delayed due to a backlog of work at the Bronx County District Attorney's Office. On January 28, 2011, 258 days after his arrest, Kalief appeared in court. Let me repeat that. 258 days. He was in Rikers Island over a stolen book bag. An alleged stolen book bag, guys. Keep that in mind. The prosecution desired multiple deferments in the case. On June 23, 2011, the record indicated delays with the prosecutor not ready, requesting additional time on various dates, including August 4th, 2011, and November 4th, 2011, and December 2nd, 2011. Most of Kalief's communication with his public defender occurred through Kalief's mother. Brendan described Kalief as a quiet and respectful, but noticed an apparent toughening and increase in size over time. He expressed a desire to go to trial, despite being offered a plea bargain of 3.5 years in prison in exchange for a guilty plea, which he declined. In June of 2012, the offer was reduced to 2.5 years, but Kalief once again rejected the plea deal. As of June 29th, 2012, the record continued to reflect the prosecutor's unreadiness and requests for delays on days September 28th, 2012, November 2nd, 2012, and December 14th, 2012. After spending 961 days in Rikers, Kalief appeared before 8 judges, leading him to express frustration, stating, quote, "These guys are just playing with my case," end quote. On March 13th, 2013, he faced Bronx Judge Patricia DeMango, who proposed an immediate release plea bargain for admitting of guilt to 2 misdemeanors, considering time already served. He refused to accept the plea bargain and continued his time at Rikers. On May 29th, 2013, anticipating the dismissal of charges 1 week later, Judge Domingo freed Kalief due to the, quote, victim, Roberto Batista, had returned to Mexico and could not testify against him. Let me just remind you guys, we are now in 2013. This was the 3 years to the date of the victim's quote-unquote book bag being stolen. 3 years. 3. The duration of Kalief's continued incarceration after the DA's office realized they couldn't move their case at trial remains unknown. Upon his release, Kalief and his brother Kalief Browder desired legal representation and were connected with Brooklyn civil rights attorney Paul V. Prestia. In 2011, Paul successfully represented a Haitian man wrongly jailed in the Bronx for 8 days. In November 2013, Kalief filed a lawsuit against the New York City Police Department, the Bronx District Attorney, and the Department of Corrections, alleging malicious prosecution and misleading information about trial preparation. Civil rights attorney Paul Prestia argued that the prosecution knew there would be no witness when the victim returned to Mexico. The city of New York denied these allegations. Shortly after his release, he passed a huge milestone of passing the GED exam, and he enrolled at Bronx Community College. He participated in the City University of New York's Future Now program, which provides college education to formerly incarcerated youths. He completed 11 credits and ended the semester with a 3.56 GPA. He skipped the fall semester due to his battle with depression, but resumed in the spring. On May 11, 2015, he submitted a paper titled, quote, "A Closer Look at Solitary Confinement in the United States," end quote, which earned him an A. In the paper, he advocated for comprehensive scrutiny of solitary confinement practices across the country, suggesting alternative forms of punishment for the rule-breaking inmates that address mental health concerns. He worked as a mathematics tutor for the GED at his community college to help support his mother. He briefly worked as a security guard but faced dismissal when his history of mental illness resurfaced. Additionally, he handed out flyers near Wall Street. He stated, quote, "I see businessmen and businesswomen dressed in suits. I want to be successful like them," end quote. As I stated before, Kalief battled with depression. He went through a lot of malicious stuff while in prison. Kalief made several attempts to take himself out. The first time was back in 2010 while he was in custody. The second attempt was on February 8th, 2012. He used strips of bedding sheets to try and hang. He tied them to a ceiling light in his cell. He would later state that the correctional officers provoked him into making that. On another occasion, after a court appearance, he grabbed a sharp object and began to harm himself, but an officer intervened. After he was released from prison, he was still obviously battled with depression. He was seemingly forced to survive in the real world after going through hell, physically and mentally. He stated, quote, "People tell me because I have this case against the city, I'm alright. But I'm not alright. I messed up. I know that I might see some money from this case, but that's not going to help me mentally. I'm mentally scarred right now. That's how I feel. There are certain things that changed about me, and they might not change back. Before I went to jail, I didn't know about a lot of stuff, and now that I'm aware, I'm paranoid," end quote. In November 2013, he made another attempt and was admitted to the psychiatric ward of St. Barnabas Hospital. On June 6, 2015, at 12:15 p.m., Kalief Browder made another attempt. This time, he was successful. His mother found him dangling from an air conditioning unit outside his bedroom window. A 3-hour vigil was held near Manhattan Detention Center on June 11, 2015, chanting "Justice for Kalief," with a concurrent vigil held on Rikers Island. People were holding up signs that read "Black Lives Matter." His funeral service was on June 16, 2015, and he was laid to rest in an unidentified Bronx cemetery. Protest events on Rikers Island were organized through Facebook on June 27, 2015, under the banners "March to Shut Down Rikers, Justice for Kalief Browder, No to Criminalization," and hashtags "Resist Rikers" and "Shut Down Rikers." The event garnered 5 500 Facebook responses featuring signs with Black Lives Matters, slogans, and portraits of Kalief. On August 10th, 2015 was the anniversary of Michael Brown's shooting death. 50 peaceful protesters led by Kalief's brother, Kalief Browder, gathered at the Bronx Supreme Court chanting Black Lives Matter. Michael Brown was an 18-year-old that was shot and killed by police officer Darren Wilson in Ferguson, Missouri on August 9th, 2014. Tragically, on October 14th, 2016, Kalief's mother, Vanita Browder, passed away due to complications of a heart attack. His attorney, Paul V. Bristia, believed she literally died of a broken heart, attributing the stress from legal battles and the pain of Kalief's death as overwhelming factors. Kalief Browder echoed this sentiment, stating, quote, "My mother has been holding herself strong, but she's heartbroken," end quote. Following Kalief's passing, his legal team continued in pursuing legal action against the city. Kalief Browder informed BuzzFeed News, quote, "We go back to court on March 21st, 2017. The judge is probably going to do what they've been doing, prolonging. It's a game that they play," end quote. In January 2019, New York City reached a settlement in a civil lawsuit with the Browder family, agreeing to pay $3.3 million. Not one person from the Bronx DA's office faced personal accountability for the 3-year incarceration of Kalief without a trial or conviction. In 2015, Representative John Conyers Jr. and Sheila Jackson Lee, members of the House Judiciary Committee and House Judiciary Crime Subcommittee, introduced a bill known as the Law Enforcement Trust and Integrity Act of 2015, along with 3 other bills targeting youth incarceration reform. Among them, another bill called the Effective and Humane Treatment of Youth Act of 2015, end quote, or Kalief's Law, in honor of Kalief. The bill included provisions such as the prohibition of solitary confinement for youth inmates, restrictions on shackling and restraining youth without adequate justification during court appearances, and a mandate for states to expedite trials. Although it entered the introductory phase of legislation, it was referred to the Subcommittee on Crime, Terrorism, Homeland Security, and Investigations. It did not progress into a law. On January 25th, 2016, President Barack Obama signed an executive order to ban the solitary confinement of juveniles in federal prisons. In October 2016, New York City Correctional Commissioner Joseph Boyd announced that the city would discontinue placing prisoners aged 19 to 21 in solitary confinement. Mayor Bill de Blasio praised the move as a groundbreaking and a step toward more humane approaches in correction facilities, implementing a measure that city officials had approved in January 2015. In 2017, Mayor de Blasio declared the intention to close the Rikers Island jail facility. And in October 2019, the New York City Council voted to close Rikers Island jail and other city jails by 2026. On April 10, 2017, Governor Andrew Cuomo signed the Raise the Age initiative into law, redirecting most cases involving 16 and 17-year-old defendants to the family court or to be reviewed by judges with specialized training in social services. In March 2017, the television documentary series Time, The Kalief Browder Story, releasing 6 episodes and was produced by rapper and businessman Jay-Z and Harvey Weinstein, was aired on Netflix. I watched the entire documentary about a year ago, which is when I discovered Kalief's case. It was very touching and very heartfelt. It further explains everything that he truly went through. I would definitely recommend for you guys to check it out. His story was featured in a 2022 episode of Last Week Tonight with John Oliver. John explained that he had initially planned to cover his story in 2015, but decided against it as the attended episode would have came out the following day after his tragic death. To honor his memory, on May 25th, 2017, the corner of East 181st Street and Prospect Avenue in the Bronx was officially renamed Kalief Browder Way.